सो आप सबका बहुत बहुत बर्लिन के रहने वाले सारे भारतीयों का, बर्लिन वासियों का बहुत बहुत स्वागत. Thanks a lot, all the people, wonderful people of Berlin, and I also believe a lot of people have driven from long distance. I just met Rohit, Meenakshi, she is also driven 200 miles, 240 miles, okay. So a lot of people have traveled hundreds of miles to be here, to watch this movie, to be with us. Wherever we go, whichever city we have gone to so far, even when nobody knew about that film, people have been driving long distances and coming. Some people in US were driving 9 hours, driving straight 9 hours. Yesterday we were, which city? We were in Den Haag, and there were students, girls on top of that. They took a train and they traveled for 19 hours just to be there with us. In India also, a lot of people, when the film did not release in their cities, have taken trains overnight, and they left in the evening, reached in the morning, watched the first show and came back. Why is it happening? I ask myself very often, what is it? There are so many films which are being made. There are some amazingly great films which are being made in India. Then why is it that this film is bringing people together despite a lot of difficulties? Imagine students traveling for 19 hours. Train journey is not cheap in Europe, you know that. For an Indian student from a lower middle class, it's not cheap, it's expensive. To come, then stay in a hotel. We were in US, and there were these young boys, 3 or 4 of them, from Salt Lake City. I mean, they flew, they changed their flights in 2 different cities, and finally hopping, they left in the morning, reached in the evening, stayed there for 2 days just to meet us and see the film with us. This has never happened before. This is phenomenal. This is exceptional, unprecedented. So I keep wondering, when we are traveling, when I am alone, when I go for a walk in the morning. Today also I was walking alongside the river here in Berlin, and I was thinking, what is it that is bringing people together? I think the reason could be, you can correct me if I am wrong, the reason could be that despite being victims of oppression, invasions, lootings, killings, theft. We were the richest country when Britain colonized us. When they left us, we were one of the poorest countries in the world. In fact, we did not even have food grain to eat. If you remember, the entire Lal Bahadur Shastri's Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan started because there was no food. In fact, in Italy, in one conference in 1956 or something, please pardon me if I am the year I am forgetting right now. But in that World Food Grain Conference, they said that India will not survive. Indians will die like sheep in a butcher house. That's quote unquote was the resolution. When Britishers left us, everybody said India will not be able to survive because India cannot handle this kind of democracy with the poorest population, and that too one of the largest populations in the world. The view of the world towards us was malign, distorted, and it was the narrative against India was created in such a way that we look like the weakest people from all angles. And weakest morally also. Because when the Britishers left India, they labeled Hindus as the majority population of India, which was fundamentally wrong. And absolutely wrong. In next 2 minutes, I'll tell you why it was fundamentally wrong. Because before Britishers came to India, in India there was no concept of majority or minority despite Mughal rule. India for 800 years before Britishers was ruled by the minority, so-called Western style minority. Muslims, Islamic people. And they came to India to spread Islam. There was a tax on people who were not Muslims. Jizya, you know about it? Anybody who doesn't know about Jizya? Jizya was a tax which Hindus had to give in their own country, in their own motherland, to invaders to be able to practice Hinduism. And it was a very heavy tax. All these red forts and Taj Mahals which you see are built with this Jizya tax. But yet, there was no concept of majority and minority. Because they were interested only in forcing their own religious faith, rule us, but they were not interested in changing our definitions, social definitions. Then came the Britishers with the Western definitions, and they started dividing the society on the lines of majority and minority. It reached to such an extent that a two-nation theory was propagated. And this two-nation theory was on the lines of religion, that all Muslims will live in one country and all Hindus will live in one country. There was, again, the reason was the Khilafat movements, the first principle was, because Muslims are minority, their numbers are low, they will not be able to practice freely their own faith in a Hindu majority country. This is what the Britishers also wrote in their history books. And therefore, they should be given a separate country. So what happened? A special country was created. Islamic Republic of Pakistan was created so that all those people who had faith in Islam, who wanted to practice Islam, they can live in one geographical location together, and everybody was given freedom. Whoever wanted to go there could have gone there. So all those people who thought they cannot live in India with the majority, they left and went to Pakistan. And India declared itself a secular country. Secularism came later on, but it declared itself that anybody who wants to practice any religion, any faith, atheism, whatever you want, government will not interfere. You are free to do whatever you want to do. That makes us the only greatest society in the world, despite being ruled, looted, raped by 1,000 years of minority rule. When we found freedom, we still gave them the equal rights. No other country has done it anywhere in the world. But then we were cheated. We were cheated because people who wanted to practice their faith, the faith of Islam, already a country was given. India was divided, one of the largest countries, one of the countries with the largest footprints in the world. I know a lot of Westerners won't agree with this because people don't read, but if you read carefully, if you do good research, you will find most of the knowledge wealth, the wealth of knowledge. In the pre-medieval world, the source of that knowledge is India, Bharat, not India, Bharat. There was no India at that time. And I'm not saying it to show anybody down. The contribution of the West in terms of science is immense, amazing. In terms of systems, in terms of management, is amazing, unparalleled. But when it comes to questions of philosophy, theology, sociology, look at the Chanakya's work in sociology. All the and the space science, astrology, astronomy, we gave so much knowledge to the world. And this is the reason why we were the richest people in the world. Because we had so much of knowledge. Now all that knowledge has gone to Silicon Valley, so they have become the richest people. Whoever has knowledge will eventually be the most powerful and the richest country in the world. Two things they did. Divided India, the same India which gave knowledge to the world. And what is that knowledge? What is that knowledge? What is that one fundamental principle which Bharat gave to the world, and today the entire world is advocating and trying to become champion of that thought? What is the source of that thought? In Bharat, we invented a term called Anekantvad, which means there are millions of ways to reach the truth. There are millions and billions of paths to reach the truth. Everybody has his own unique path to reach the truth. Denying somebody else the right to follow that path or believe in that path, or negating somebody else's way to reach the truth, is real violence. That is real inhumanity. The humanity tour which we are doing, this is the essence of this humanity tour. I want the world to understand that we believe, I come from the land where we believe that there can be 7.5 billion ways to arrive at the truth. And who knows, even animals have their own ways to arrive at the truth. Anything which is part of this cosmos deserves equal respect, deserves the right to life and the right to discover truth. But the same country which gave this idea of diversity of thoughts, today the entire West, everybody has become an advocate, an activist of diversity. Everybody talks about pluralism. Everybody talks about inclusiveness. Everybody talks about liberalism. If you study deeply, do not go by English jargon. All these concepts were invented. I'm saying invented because for the first time human beings ever created a system based on their knowledge and thought and observation. And these were the thoughts. This is India's biggest contribution to the world. Liberalism. Pluralism. What is pluralism? Our pluralism is so evolved, it will take another 500 years for West to understand it. And that concept of liberalism and inclusiveness is that even if you abuse your God, there is no blasphemy. In India, there are atheists who are very popular, extremely popular atheists who have gone and peed on Shivling. Shivling is Shiva's symbolic. This is how we worship Shiva. And Shiva is one god, people who do not know, is also revered by the Nobel laureates. It is the statue of Shiva is right in front of CERN lab in Switzerland. Shaivism is taught in some of the most modern liberal universities of the world. People have peed on Shiva, and still some of them remained Hindu. Because we believe that at the end, what is the essence of Hindu philosophy? It is you are God. Everything else, worshipping murtis, going to temples, anything which you do, all the rituals are ultimately going to lead you to look at yourself and discover your own true self, true nature, and understand that you are God. Tattvam Asi. That is the first sutra. You are that. You are that. You are that power. And to reach that power, whether you believe in Allah or Jesus Christ or Shiva, you don't believe in anybody, you believe in sky, you don't believe in anything. Doesn't matter. Because you can discover that power of God only when you are totally, all the worldly thoughts are absent in your mind. When you are facing yourself in your most truest nature. And therefore, India became the world's most diverse country. The only reason, whoever came over there, we never objected to their way of worshipping. We never objected why they are wearing what they are wearing. Why are they eating what they are wearing? And which is why India is the only country in the entire world where every 10 kilometers you will find the same food, same thing. The new recipe will new ingredients keeps adding on. There are 100 ways you can make roti, the simple bread. We are the world's most diverse, inclusive, and liberal society. Which is why we gave equal rights to Parsis who are alien to India, very few in numbers. Sindhis who migrated, all of them came to India. But then, when we found independence, a very false narrative was created by the West that Hindus are the majority and therefore Muslims are the minorities and they will not be safe in India. They will not be safe in India, which is why Pakistan was created. Where is the argument after Pakistan was created? But the West kept on saying that. And therefore they started giving a kind of a ideological narrative to all the terrorists in Kashmir. And they used Kashmir as a part of this jigsaw of narratives, and this became the missing block in the entire narrative. And they said that in Kashmir, Muslims are suffering because of Hindu exploitation. And therefore, Kashmir always remained a problem, conflict zone in India. This is a lie. This is an absolute lie. Kashmir has always been the apex educational seat of not just Bharat, but the entire subcontinent and Asia. People from Greece, people from Rome, people from China, people from Cambodia, people from Sri Lanka came over there to study and get the best of the knowledge. It's a land of Shiva, Indian, the Bharati, the Hindu god. It is a land of Saraswati. It is a land of Abhinav Gupta, the father of philosophy. It is the land of Natya Shastra, the science of drama. Everything, yoga, Patanjali, Ayurveda, Upanishad, Vedanta, whatever you want to talk about, anything which represents Hinduism was all created, most of it was created in Kashmir. Anybody saying that Kashmir is even slightly disputed land is naive or a vicious person. Kashmir is 100% Hindu land. Every corner, every inch of Kashmir has Hinduism written in it. Its name itself is Srinagar, the capital. It's called Kashmir after it's called Kashmir after Rishi Kashyap. Anantnag, most of the places, all the names if you see. Shankaracharya Hill. There is no Rumi Hill, there is Shankaracharya Hill. I fail to understand why such simplest of the things, obvious of the things, people fail to recognize. Even Hindus fail to recognize. You know something? Ask your children who have not seen the film. Ask them, where do you think this name Kashmir comes from? I guarantee 9 out of 10 children will say Kashmir is a Urdu word. I checked with so many students in India. Almost every student thought that Kashmir was originally a Muslim land. And we captured it. They thought Kashmir belonged to Pakistan. India is forcefully capturing it. It's the other way around. We failed. All of us collectively failed in knowing our own roots. And which is why this problem was not solved. We thought this is the problem of the West. We thought, correct me if I am wrong, Ajay ji, we thought this is a problem between Nehruji and UNO. We thought this is a problem between Muslims and some Kashmiri Pandits. We never thought this is our problem. It's as much our problem as a problem of your father's house or your mother's old sari, which has to be given to your daughter in her wedding. Would you let anybody take that sari of your mother-in-law? You will not. Will you let anybody take over the puja room of your father? Never. But we let others take Kashmir from us and convert it into a conflict zone, isolated all our children to go there, and we made it a breeding ground of terrorism. And therefore, and nobody heard. A lot of people who wanted to say nobody heard them. They were voiceless. So when this film came, for the first time in our generation, the awakening took place. For the first time, our collective consciousness, we realized that we have a collective consciousness. Before that, we didn't even know that. We understood what it feels when you find an old album of your grandfather and discover your own roots. This is what we felt for Kashmir. Otherwise, we used to believe that Kashmiri Pandit is some other community. It's not connected to us. Kashmir, the word Kashmir has played such a psychological impact in your life. Today, when you go back, please, I am requesting you sincerely, before sleeping today, close your eyes and think about Kashmir the way you have thought about Kashmir since your childhood. And write to me if I am wrong. Don't write me if I am right. Write to me if I am wrong. In your mind, subconsciously, you also had isolated Kashmir as if it's somebody else's problem. It's beyond us to solve it. Isn't it? How many of you felt hell? Tell me, let me ask you one question, and please answer this very, very honestly. Did the thought ever occur to you? Did it ever come to your mind, even once, even innocently, कि चलो यार, let forget it, चलो हटाओ ना अलग कश्मीर उठा के करो ना अलग, इंडिया का प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व हो? Has this thought come to your mind once? Never? Good. Then you are true Bharatiyas. I don't know how many are speaking the truth. But we actually threw Kashmir out of our minds. We thought this is a problem, we cannot solve it. Because terrorists are involved, army is involved, international politics is involved, and we feel we are feeble, we are small people. Who's going to listen to our voice? This is where art comes in. This is where artists come in. 90% of freedom movement was won because of our authors, poets, writers, journalists, people who became voice of the nation. And this film, The Kashmir Files, today gave voice to the voiceless. It became the voice not only of Kashmiri Pandits, it became voice of the entire India. It became voice of the Kashmiri Pandit community and also the voice of those Muslims who are fighting terrorism. And this is the reason people are traveling 14 hours, spending most of their monthly budget, because for the first time in the history, our collective consciousness has been awakened. We are feeling one. And this is the reason we are here, to tell you that the biggest quality of humanity is oneness. When there is no othering, when othering happens, Kashmir happens. When you stop anybody else from practicing or believing in their own path to discover truth, terrorism happens. We have seen it with our eyes. And therefore, wherever I go, I take this message of oneness, diversity, which means let everybody survive whatever they want to practice, but culturally, philosophically, we are all one. And this concept of oneness is Indian. This concept of diversity is Indian. this concept of liberalism, pluralism, inclusiveness, they are ours. Because we believed that knowledge has no copyright, therefore there is no patent on them. Otherwise, we would have patented them. And all these concepts evolved in a place called Kashmir, the land of Rishi Kashyap. So if Kashmir survives with Kashmiri Hindus, Kashmir's survival is not important. If Kashmir survives with Kashmiri Hindus, then only these concepts will survive. And therefore, humanity will survive. Thank you very much.